T. Clark here, and this video is going to go over the AP Computer Science 2016 FRQ number 4C. And in the last video for 4B, I saw that some of the screencastify wasn't capturing the juice mind, and that's why I'm doing this. I'm trying to see if juice mind works well enough, either for in class with my students or with me making videos, and it looks like it might not be good for making videos. So I'll try one more time, and we'll see what the results are. But either way, I'm only going to do this 2016 one once, and I'll upload the video as I normally do. So the problem says, write the string formatter method format. So format, that's the one that'll take all the letters, all the words, and put the spaces in the right space, and it'll return it correctly formatted in, for example, in the 20 spaces that's given. Okay, so what does it also say? Which will return the formatted string as defined earlier. The string formatter class also contains a method called leftover spaces. So I have leftover spaces hacked together, and it should work as intended, but we don't care about that. It's just going to work as intended. And it will return the number of leftover spaces as defined earlier, and is shown below. Okay, so return the number of leftover spaces. So the leftover spaces, if I remember correctly, is in example 2, where we had 15 letters, and we had 3 gaps, but we only had 5 extra letters, and the basic gap width was 1, and then the leftover spaces was 2, because we had 1, 2, 3. Each of the gaps, each of the 3 gaps had 1, and the leftover spaces is 1 here and 1 here, just in order from left to right. So the 2 leftover spaces get spent in the first 2 gaps, and then the third gap doesn't get 1 because it's not even. So we have that method. We don't have to worry about that, or we don't have to make it. We don't have to implement it, but we should probably use it. I think it says you must use it. So here's the directions for part C, format. Assume that basic gap width works as specified. So even if you messed up, or even if you leave it blank, you still have to use it as it's expected. Regardless of what you wrote in part B. You must use basic gap width and leftover spaces appropriately to receive full credit. Okay, so it returns a formatted string consisting of the words and word list, separated by spaces. Okay, so the word list contains at least 2 words, the same precondition as before, and formatted len can fit all the words and at least 1 space in the gaps. All words in word list appear and formatted in the string. The words appear in the same order as in word list. So I'm just looping over the word list, adding the word, and then adding the space, and then adding the next word, adding the spaces, and adding the next one. So the number of spaces between words is determined by the basic gap width and the distribution of leftover spaces from left to right as described in the question. Okay, so it'll add 1 space each time until it's out. Okay, so I think I need to count down for that one. And I'm just going to get that data first. So I have my int gap equals basic gap width. So this is how many spaces I need. And what does basic gap width need? It needs the word list, which is just my word list. So I'll pass it along. And it needs the formatted len, which is formatted len parameter. So I'll just pass it along as well. Formatted len. So this will give me the gap width, how many spaces basically I'm going to add each time. Okay, then what else do I need? I need leftover spaces int. I said this is going to count down, so I'm going to say, what did I say it? Extra. I'll just call it extra equals leftover space. I guess leftover is one word. Leftover spaces, and again, leftover spaces needs the word list and the formatted len. So word list and formatted len. So I get those 2 numbers. And then, like I said, I'm going to set up my result. So it's a string result. So, and notice how I already have this return temp. That way there's no error. That's kind of a mess up. I shouldn't have had that in the first place. So string result equals blank string. And at the very end, right when I write string result, at the bottom of my page, I put return result. So that's a good habit to have, just so you don't forget. Because sometimes even getting the string, the type correct and making sure to return it, that's 1 point. So they might be nice, and you get that 1 point out of 3 or 4. So either way, I need to loop over the word list, go word by word. So normal loop for int I equals 0, and it has to be in order, so it's not backwards or anything special. So I less than word list dot, and again, I'm going to triple check. It's an array list. So I look at the bottom. Array list is dot size. So I use dot size, and then I plus plus. So there's my loop. I'm going to enter bracket, enter, scroll down a bit, give myself some more space. So it's more, there we go. Okay, so I want to add the word to result. So result plus equals the word list dot get I. So I get that word at I, add it to the result. Then I need to add spaces. So now I'm going to add spaces based on the extra and the gap. So how many, so it depends on the gap. So I'm going to do a little, maybe a little tiny mini loops. So for int j equals 0, j less than gap, j plus plus. So these are the normal spaces. So each time I have a gap, each time after the word, I'm going to add the gap except for the last one. So I don't want the last one. So I want to, in the gap, I want to add the spaces. I don't want to add the gap, I want to add a space based on the gap. Okay, so I need the if statement. So if, so I don't do it on the last one. So if I is not equal to word, I'll just say less than word list dot size minus 1. So if it's not the last one, I need to add this, the spaces. Okay, so that's everything in between, and I add the gap space, and then I need to add the leftover. So I'm going to say if extra is greater than 0, I'm going to add one more space. And then I'm going to subtract from the extra. So every time I go through, it'll go one less extra space. And as I go through in order, it'll go from left to right as it should be. Okay, so I only have a space if it's not the last one. This is not word list size. Oh yeah, it is. I is less than word list size, yes. So if it's not the last one. So I'm gonna run it. Hopefully my runner isn't messed up like the last few ones have been. And I won't have to cut this video. Okay, so it looks like, it looks like it's not running the correct one. So I wonder if it skipped in the video. So I need to uncomment 4C. Oh, and it uncommented everything here. I don't like that. Okay, it should be AP comp sci rocks. Okay, so it has two. I have to count them manually. AP 1, 2. Is that 3 or is that a return? I think that might just be return. And then 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. Okay, oh, it looks like it's true. Oh, I got true. So the trues are good. I'm going to count them anyway. 1, 2, 1, 2 after the green, 1, 2 after eggs, and then only 1 after ham. Yep, looks good, looks good. And then beach ball. I'm going to assume there's 11 there. And then a frog is, that one was just one of the examples. So I think it's working. So again, you want to get the space, the number of spaces, set up your result string, empty string, and you're gonna, what the heck just happened? You're gonna add to it, and then you're gonna loop through every word, add the word to the result. If it's not the last word, I'm gonna add the spaces based on the gap and the number of gaps. And then if there's one extra space, I'm gonna add that space and subtract from the extra leftover spaces pool. And then always, 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 if you have a type to return, you return that result of that type. So that's 2016 FRQs, and this is 4C. Have a good day. That's not what I want to do.